What's up, guys, and welcome back to Paint Bravely, the podcast where you can find a little bit of encouragement, discover new ways to make your hobby more fun, and most importantly, learn to paint bravely. Now, this is episode 11, so we are still doing this. If you thought for some reason we were stopping the podcast, we're not. We're definitely not stopping the podcast. So this week we're going to get into a little bit of what we've been doing. We both just got back from vacation, and we're going to get into some fun topics from viewers and some scalping questions, I guess.
Yeah.
So, Brent, you just got back from vacation, and you've been doing a bunch of hobby, I'm sure, the whole time.
That's true. That's actually pretty accurate, yeah. Yeah,
Very
so like we talked about last time, went to the lake, went canoeing, and as I travel, I take with me something to assemble. I think that's a good compromise for getting some hobby done on the road. So I took with me some Necrons to put together.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Some Indomitus Necrons?
No, the ones I took with me on vacation, I hadn't gotten my Indomitus Necrons yet, so I had some old Necrons actually.
Still good.
Some test models. Still good. So yeah, taking that on the road, you just need some glue and like a hobby knife, some clippers, some models. Don't need your whole selection of paints and all that. Pretty easy just to get set up at a level 1 hobby desk wherever you find yourself and go to town.
Very nice, very nice.
Yep. And then I also took my camera with me on vacation. Never missed a good opportunity to get a little bit of footage. So I went out fishing, went out on the canoe, and I did what is becoming a somewhat regular thing now of putting a camera on a tripod at the bow of the canoe, sitting in the back, getting some footage of paddling along on the lake there. And this time what I did is I actually got a lot of footage of fishing. And so I set my camera up to take, a 30-minute video. And I started doing this challenge of how many fish can I catch in 30 minutes? And it's just the stupidest thing, but it was a lot of fun. And
yeah.
I caught more than 0 fish in 30 minutes. I don't want to spoil the video.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
How many hours did you fish like throughout the whole time?
I mean, just a couple.
Okay.
Or like a couple of hours that I actually got footage for. But
right, yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it. I might actually release that as a video, just a clickbaity YouTube, how many fish can I catch in 30 minutes? And I actually did this a couple of times with different lures. So I might even make it like...
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Like
throw
nature,
the lure up in the
corner.
corner.
or like fishing channel specific, like MEPS French spinner lure versus the...
Yes.
Rapala original floating minnow.
That I like that a lot. I'm excited. I'm so excited. Yeah, I went fishing for, probably 7 or 8 hours total over 2 days. Caught 1 fish. It's very disappointing, but it was on a MEPS lure. Yeah, it was a nice.
Was a MEPS. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of MEPS? So, for those listening at home, this is a sinking metal artificial lure that has like a spoon that spins around in a circle as you're pulling it through the water. It's got a spinner, and it adds some drag and a lot of flash to the lure. But
very shiny.
Yeah, what's your type of MEPS? What do you like?
I like the chrome spinners. So it's it's got the little fuzz on the end with like the tri hook. But it's just chrome. So the shiniest thing you can get, and the water's pretty clear, so like you could see it shining like as it was coming back in. I also like to put like 2 feet up the line, some weight, so that it kind of drags a little bit. And that seems to work pretty good for me most of the time. But I was in a lake that had way too many people in it for, Corona season. And I think it was just not a good time to fish.
Well, sorry to hear that, buddy. At least you got one, right?
I'll put that picture up. It's comical.
Did your son see you catch a fish?
He did. He was very excited, actually.
Okay. All right.
He was extremely excited. He got to touch it, and then I threw it back, and it swam off.
That's perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't like, I'm sorry, son, daddy's a failure.
Yeah. Well, it's
Daddy
like I had my
lied to you.
nephews
Yeah.
too, and they were both fishing for the same amount of time. They didn't catch anything. They were very disappointed.
Oh. Well, did you have them set up on the same maps? You got that?
Yeah, and I was switching some stuff out with some of the apparently some of the, it's like the surface lures they're like, they kind of wobble back and forth. I can't remember what brand it is, but they're like little bugs, you know.
Okay, yeah.
Those are supposed to be pretty good for where we're at, but they didn't do anything.
Well, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. But I'm hoping you, like you said, you caught more than 0. And if you're willing to make a video about it, it's going to be exciting. So I'm definitely going to watch it.
That's what I like to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, hooked you. That's awesome. That's great. So we're both back from our vacations now. We're back to painting and making videos and all that. Mm-hmm. What else is new with you, Casey?
Well, so right when I got back, I decided to paint 2,000 points of Stormcast and stay up all night. It was a really bad idea. It turned out really good, but I still felt like crap the whole time.
Yeah, I agree. I watched that video, and it did turn out really well. Did you get any sleep before that? So, I mean, you started one of these 24-hour marathon videos, and I've done this a couple times now, and whenever I start one of those, I start at like 9:30, 10 in the morning so that I can get a good solid night's sleep first, okay, and start at the, not at the very start of the day, but like start an hour after I wake up, after I've had time to get some eggs in me and a little bit of coffee and all that. But, looking at the video you made, it seemed like you started at like 7 at night or something like that.
Yeah, I started at like 6:15 or something.
Okay.
I mean, usually I like to stay up late anyway, so I figured, okay, well, if I can push through till dawn, then the sun's pretty much going to take care of the rest. Like, I've got daylight coming in, there's stuff going on, and for the most part, that actually helped quite a bit. I think what really did me in, I guess, is the fact that I just got back from a pretty non-relaxing type of a vacation where I was pretty much just working the whole time, like moving stuff and driving and dealing with all these things. Like, that's just the way it worked out. But like, I made it through, and I didn't quite get to 24 hours like video wise, because about 4 hours left in the video, I got a phone call that my wife's car was dead on the side of the road. So I had to leave with about 5 hours left to go jump her car so she could get back home. So I kind of was wrecked at that point, and I was just like, well, at least the army's done. I think I'll stop here.
Were there any arguments as you were hooking up the car batteries? Positive, negative frame. No, positive, negative. Like,
I almost got them backwards. Like, I was about to put them on backwards, and I'm like, no, that's not how this goes.
Just super deprived, not really car mechanic guy. Yeah.
It was a little rough, but I mean, it went better than I expected, I guess. And I'm definitely ready to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, the way you framed the actual video, it was just, hey, I'm done with the army after 19 hours. I got some time left to spare, and it looks good, and, dust off your hands. Mm-hmm. We did it, guys. We got the army done. Yeah,
and what's worse is I ended up staying up the whole rest of the next day, too.
Okay.
Like, I think I slept for like an hour, and then just went to bed at like 9 or 10 at night.
Wow.
So I could have kept going, but it was done.
Yeah, but you got 2,000 points of Stormcast looking pretty good, and your paint scheme was that stone cast, as you call them, so grays with a lot of dry brushing and stuff like that, and then you had a blue glow effect that looked awesome, and then you had some flock, which people were divided on whether they thought it looked awesome or not, but
well, because I did a Stonecast video before, and people were down. Like they did not like the moss that I did, because it was like deer moss. It's a little bigger, you know. They were like real small pieces. I thought it looked cool, but then I went with this other stuff, and the size wasn't the issue this time. It was the color. Like a lot of hate for the color, even though I think that it really sets everything apart. Like it looks so cool to me, but yeah, not enough variety for some people, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the theme was a mountainside come to life or something like that, right? And
pretty much like if you think about the what is it, porcelain ceramic army, the one in China.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but the 7,000 buried soldiers or...
Yeah.
No, it's not going to come to me, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's what you had in mind? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, you used a little bit of lore rationale to explain away a fairly simple but effective paint scheme. You used your airbrush to do that blue glow effect, which legitimately looks awesome and sells the whole thing. And of course, just an army actually done up to all look like each other and all standing next to each other looks awesome. And it sounds like you got it done with a lot of obstacles in your way. So congratulations on that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was good times. I also got a 3D printer in the mail, and I haven't even done anything with it yet, but I got to dive into that. So I need all your files, Brent. I need all your STLs.
Congratulations. That is fun. That is, an aspect of our hobby that is growing very fast right now, and I am totally into.
Yeah.
So maybe you're just getting to the point where you're getting emails from the 3D printer companies. I've been getting them for, a few months before you, and I am up to 5 now. Actually, just before we started this podcast, I unboxed another one, and I have several that are all like the same size and same basic specs, just from different manufacturers. And then I just got the next of a new generation that's larger. So instead of a 2K screen for the photopolymerization at the bottom of the build plate, it has a 4K screen now.
I've been wondering when those were going to start getting sent out.
Yeah. So I just unboxed it and kind of went through the wide eyes of, wow, look how big this is, and just trying to imagine, the size of, at this point, statue that you can make with this. The previous generation, depending on the proportions of the figure you wanted to print out, you could print out something about the size of an action figure. Something about 6 inches tall, as long as they don't have, their arm and a banner or a sword above their head or anything, that it needs to be much smaller or be printed in pieces. But, this thing is not quite double the height or the width or anything, but it is a much larger volume of a print area. And my imagination is just going wild with, print like a pretty cool dragon out, or just some barbarian that really takes up a pretty good chunk of your desk,
Yeah.
So
that's pretty exciting with the 4K too. I'm really curious to see if there is like a vast difference in quality.
Probably the quality will be very similar. So the pixel density, if anything, it's either similar, it's probably pretty similar to the one you have. And sorry, I didn't mean to immetable belittle your 3D printer for anyone else who's gotten
tiny 3D printer,
the Anycubic Photon or Mars, or what one did you get, Casey?
So it is the newer one. It's the Photon S.
Okay.
So it's the little bit fancier version. I don't actually know what resolution it prints at, like screen wise.
I think it's 2K. I think it's 2K.
It probably is. Yeah. But I know it is the slightly nicer one.
Yeah, it's the resolution. I think the math comes out to 0.05 millimeters is like the pixel size, and when you print out a figure like that, sometimes you get just a a hint of like a topographical map kind of effect, like the rings, the aliasing. But it's still the pixel size on that determines the kind of XY resolution of the print, and then the step height for the platform going up and down out of the vat is determining the Z resolution, and you can fix that. It just depends how good the step motor is, but normally you set it so it's a cube, so that the resolution is a cube that's a 20th of a millimeter on each side, which is pretty good resolution. So
and I mean, I've seen prints out of the, even last generation of resin printers, and they're still really good. And I mean, for the stuff that I plan on using it for, I don't need necessarily some fancy super high resolution prints, if I'm doing bits to go on different things, right? Like, 'cause that's going to be my main focus with it is I'm missing a banner. Can I print a banner? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm missing a head or whatever it is,
Yeah, I think all of the resin printers that have come out within the last 2 years are all good. Even the ones that are pretty affordable for a consumer, the ones that are $200 or something like that. They all get the job done, and that's why there's just been this explosion of Patreon selling STL files and all of that. And there's some mini enthusiasts who are not big on the quality of these prints, but for me, they are absolutely good enough to covet and be happy with and be proud of and spend hours and hours and hours painting up. So cool. I think you're going to have fun with it, Casey. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Let's see here.
Is that your updates?
I think so.
Okay.
Caught one fish. Went to the lake.
Okay.
Painted 2,000 points. Got a printer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I went to the lake. I did not paint 2,000 points. I caught at least one fish. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, you don't want to give it away.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it. No, I won't give it away.
Don't give it away.
No,
don't do that.
No.
Because then I won't watch it.
Like I got a printer that was bigger than yours, but that's okay. You painted more models than me, and
it's a trade.
No, actually, we're just getting to the start of my updates here. So I forgot again to cancel my Disney Plus account. So this is just going to be an ongoing thing. But this time, I watched Star Wars Rebels. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it. I've seen maybe one episode.
Okay, so it's Star Wars cartoon episodic TV show, a little more for children than the movies were. I mean, it's the plot lines are a little bit tamer. Nobody's getting decapitated in quite the same ways they do in some of the movies.
Not quite.
But so it's a little bit tamer in that respect. But I found it to be a lot of fun, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because the artistic inspiration in there is real. So in particular, there's one character who is just an airbrush artist. So there's this character, Sabine Wren, who she wears Mandalorian armor, but the interesting quirk that she has is that she just carries an airbrush with her, and when she's bored on the ship, she just airbrushes things, and it adds a lot minis. Of it's great. It's great. She doesn't paint minis. She's more like a graffiti artist, or she'll paint up the ship or her armor or stuff. But it's great. It adds this really fun artistic flair to the show. It's kind of an interesting character quirk, but it allows the show to just include these purples and these oranges because she's just spray painting everything all the time. So
interesting from their perspective of we don't want to be stuck in this technically kind of grimdark future of Star Wars or the long ago past, whatever. So yeah, throwing something like that in, you get a lot more variety. That's it. I wonder if that was that a super conscious decision for the artists.
Somebody had a great idea with that one. It's the characters in one episode steal a TIE fighter, and then 4 episodes later or something, they need to do a secret mission and go undercover and use a TIE fighter to get on board a Star Destroyer. And they're like, well, we painted it. I'm sorry, we painted it. And then they just cut to the TIE fighter, and it's just completely orange and purple with these awesome designs on it and everything.
That's great.
And yeah, I mean, it makes the show look awesome. It's a fun character trait. And then you and I spend a lot of time with our airbrush too. And so it's very real inspiration for like, oh, wow. Like, I want to get a Mandalorian figure and paint it up with those crazy colors and
right.
Try to get those designs on there. And yeah, so that's today's episode of Brent Hasn't Canceled Disney Plus Yet, but he found some cool shows to watch. And
yeah, well, since like I have a kid, so Disney Plus is basically required. But I mean, yeah, there's some good stuff on there, and they're getting more stuff all the time. I mean, obviously, you got to watch Endgame, so that's a bonus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's some things in there, some hidden gems.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to be canceling it anytime soon, is what I mean.
Yeah, I keep forgetting, so I'll keep watching stuff, and just every episode, I will let you know what's going on there.
Yeah, I like it. Well, what is it, like $6 or something?
It's not breaking the bank. It's okay. I'll get over it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right then. Do you want to get into the main topic of this episode?
I have one more update that we could do here. All right. So this might be the required Paint Bravely segment of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of the episode we're not going to be talking that much about painting, but I tried a new technique for the first time and just wanted to talk about it a little bit. So I tried painting cloth with a cross-hatching method.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that.
So this is, you take some cloth texture on a Mini with, folds and rolls and that sort of stuff. And you prime it a fairly dark color. You could prime it black. You could prime it brown, whatever. And then instead of, painting on big swatches of highlights, for highlighting it up, what you do is you just make tiny little lines, like just a whole row of diagonal lines, then a whole row of other diagonal lines that crisscross the ones you drew first. And then you keep kind of stacking that cross-hatching pattern on top of each other. And you're kind of positioning those colors in the same places you would ordinarily put highlights. So you're putting more of those cross-hatched lines on the raised folds of the cloth.
Mm-hmm.
And, it does some sort of optical illusion where your eye is perceiving that texture as, a different material. That texture is really adding something to it. And you're still getting the effect of, there's more lighter, brighter colors where there should be highlights, and there's those darker colors in the deep recesses of the folds. But yeah, the reason I wanted to talk about this is just it's a new tool for the toolbox. It's kind of like a side journey on learning how to paint. And yeah, painting doesn't have to be this straight progression from bad to good or novice to expert. There's so many little tools you can pick up along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean the cross-hatching thing, I've never tried that, but like whenever I put texture into cloth, I'm usually doing that, like, little tiny lines. I like to go perpendicular, to the direction of the cloth. And that really does add just enough in there to give you that. I saw that video where you did the cross-hatching. I thought it turned out really good. I know you were talking about, wanting to make thinner lines or having to practice to make thinner lines, but like, it looked good to me, man.
Well, thanks, Casey. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a skill within a skill there of learning how to make those tiny little lines for the crosshatches thin and uniform and yeah, whatever. But
yeah, I suppose the thinner and more uniform you get, like the better it would sell the idea.
yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what kind of brush you were using.
I was using a Squidmar brush, but I haven't gotten my skills yet with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, now that you bring that up, is that the first sable brush you've used?
I've used a couple before. So I have one Da Vinci brush that's been my eyeball brush for a few years now.
Sure.
Where I use synthetics on everything pretty much until I get to the eyes. And then the sclera and the pupil are this one tiny Da Vinci brush that I have at the back of my drawer for just those occasions, you know?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I find that the sable makes a big difference in getting, you know, consistent lines, consistent whatever, because that, you know, the brush doesn't, it tends to hold up a little bit longer. You know, it doesn't get that hook tip like a lot of synthetics do.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I figured. And, you know, I got my Squidmar brushes in the mail before people who bought them, but after most of the testers did.
Right.
So I got mine in the mail like on, you know, the last day of the Kickstarter or something. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, sorry, I'm not going to be useful in plugging these, but I will give them a test and, you know, for my own knowledge, and then, you know, hopefully just a little bit of publicity to help those late sales or whatnot. But I had heard that
they needed help from us.
Yeah. Every little bit helps, right?
Yeah.
But I had heard that, you know, sable brushes were good for fine details and trying to do those consistent things, and if there is more paint and more moisture held in the body of the bristles, then I can make, you know, 20 lines before refilling the brush instead of 10 lines, and so that should add to consistency as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when you do get into a rhythm of, okay, I'm going to go up and down this big fold of cloth, and when you get into that rhythm of just being able to quickly knock out those little hatches, that feels really good. Like, just go down the line, notch, 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 notch. I had a couple of runs of that where, like, yeah, that I did exactly what I wanted to do there, and that's gonna look good. And I'd get to the next highlight color, and I make a giant smudge. Like, that's all right.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just a matter of continuing to try that new skill, that new technique, right? Like, it's going to go far. And especially if you push that, I think that you'll find a bunch of uses for something like that. And I like little techniques like that. You know, they pop up every so often, and you're like, I think I'm going to try this on this one again. You know, it just kind of comes up, and it's a nice thing to have, kind of like you said, in your toolbox.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, sometimes I think of learning to paint as being a linear journey from novice to expert, and, you know, maybe the main quest line is figuring out how to do smooth blends and, you know how to shade and highlight and get contrast on your model or something like that. But there are so many little side tools that you can figure out, and when the moment comes, you're like, you know what, instead of doing cloth with glazing or, you know, some other type of highlighting, the way I'm going to highlight this cloth is with this cross-hatching method, and I think that'll be cool in this situation. And so it's fun just to have those options, those kind of side grade techniques where you have learned something, you've put something else in your toolbox. When that situation comes up, pull it out and have fun. But along the Paint Bravely thing, it's never wasted time to just try something that you hadn't tried before, try to paint something up in a slightly different way, you know, whether that's painting with washes or dry brushing or cross hatching or freehand, you know, any of those little sub skills that you've heard of before. Never wasted time to give it a shot and figure out when that technique applies and when it doesn't, and if you have any skill at it whatsoever, or if you could develop some skill eventually. So
yeah, well, I like that. That's cool.
But
yeah, I'll have to try that out too.
Yeah, it's a fun one. We'll have to figure out what's next on the list of random little skills to learn here.
That's always the fun part, though, right? Like, you randomly stumble across some video that shows you how to do something you've never seen before. Like, even being in the hobby for a while, you can just see some weird thing, you know, and it just clicks, and you want to try it.
Right. So right now it seems, you know, both of us are now more tuned into the fads and the rhythms of what people are getting into. So it seems right now everybody's getting into painting with oil paints. Or if you picked up on that, but there's been a lot more, you know, publicity recently. You know, partially that's just, you know, we both listened to Trapped Under Plastic, but
yeah, John buying that Absalom paint.
He's been excited about that for a little while, but it does seem that there's been this spreading, you know, rage of using oil paints, because oil paints take longer to dry and you have more working time and you can get smoother blends with that, you know, longer working time. And so it's kind of fun to see, you know, just a lot of people in the community deciding that almost as like a hive mind, this is the technique that we're going to work on next as a community. And cool. Well, I'll give it a shot as well. You know, I've used a little bit of oil paints in the past, not a lot, but if everyone's getting back into them, sure, we'll add that to the toolbox next.
Yeah, you tried some oil paints in that, what was it? The roulette, Goobertown roulette, a long time ago.
Yeah. What, the episode 2 or 3 or something of Goobertown roulette, I did have to use some oil paints, and I used, you know, just the cheapest, I don't know if it was actually Rose Art paints or what, but some sort of U.S. art supply, maybe just some $8 for 24 oil paints, or it was a pretty good deal. I don't know if you can still get that deal. That was pretty good, but
yeah.
And
actually, I bought a set like that for like $8.
Nice.
Like a year ago.
Nice.
I haven't even opened it.
Nice. And yeah, the oil paints definitely do have a much longer working time. Like it takes 24 hours for them to really dry. You know, pluses and minuses to that, but
yeah, a little bit. I mean, for painting on YouTube, I suppose it depends, like how often you upload and the type of thing that you're doing. Like, I use a lot of oil products, things that, like, you know, washes and stuff that don't take too long to dry. They allow you to do some fun things and blending and that kind of thing. Actually, I've been working on painting a warband, and a lot of it is like, you know, oils and enamels. So a little bit of fun with that stuff. Haven't gone full oil paint yet, but I mean, I've been interested in it for a while. I don't know, have you seen the YouTube channel Zat Kaskagoon?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So he does the whole grim dark thing, AOS 28, all oils pretty much, and it's amazing. Like, it looks really cool. It has a very specific look to it, you know, painting in that kind of a style. And he's been using that Absalom stuff for quite a while, and I've been interested. It's very expensive oil paint, because it is formulated for miniature painting. So they've taken a lot of that oil out so that when you put it on a palette, it's going to dry actually faster,
right,
than normal oil paints that you buy, like artist oils.
Right.
So I think when we see an increase of companies coming out with oil paints that are specific for miniature painting, they still give you the same kind of results but dry quicker, I think it's really going to explode. And since there's only that one company and it is fairly expensive, you know, they kind of hold their share in the market, you know, it's going to be a minute. But I'm ready. I'm ready to make the switch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just nice to see how these different techniques kind of come along and gain popularity, and then people add that to their box of tricks, and but not everybody's going to decide that that's the favorite thing from them. But a year or two, just 1 year ago, it was contrast paints, and everyone was trying to contrast paints, and for some people they decided that was going to be their one of their main tools. Some people moved past it pretty quick. But yeah, it's great to see individuals, and then kind of interesting to see the hive mind just go through these phases of, we're going to try this technique now we're going to try this technique, now we're going to try this, and it all adds up, and eventually just getting that experience, not on a linear path to being a better painter, but kind of getting like these side grade techniques of, what if I did it this way instead of the way I was doing it, instead of just, what if I was better at my main way of doing blends,
Right, yeah.
And yeah, there's just an interesting way of gaining experience in the hobby on these little side paths that might end up being a major component of your style and the way that you like to paint. So none of this energy is wasted of trying something completely different and seeing how you like it. And for me this week, it was cross hatching on cloth, but we'll see what it is next week.
Full set of oils next week.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, moving along here, Casey. I guess we better get to the topic of the day, and we're a little late to this one, but should we talk about scalping miniatures?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so the impetus for this, and a lot of other folks have had this discussion, but Warhammer 40K is moving from 8th edition into 9th edition, and as sort of their starter box for this edition, the box that has a lot of models from 2 different armies and a rule book, therefore to my mind is the starter box to this edition, is Indomitus, which they sold out of in pre-sales, which happened 2 weeks before the release of the box, within 10 minutes of pre-sales opening up.
Yep.
And that led to various consternation and drama, because not only after 10 minutes of pre-sales, not even on launch day could you not get it after 10 minutes. You couldn't get this 10 minutes after the pre-release opened up.
Right, weeks before the actual release.
And we're just finding out now that yes, indeed, there are official starter boxes for 9th edition, but if the first 9th edition product you sell is 2 armies and a rule book in a box, it's fair for people to assume that's the starter box for the new edition.
I'd say it's perfectly fair because they never mentioned that it wasn't. It very much looks like the last starter box that they put out. Primaris Marines and something else.
Indeed.
In this case, it was Necrons. So it's like, yes, people want that.
The first printing of the 9th edition rule book was another pretty big hint on that one.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, the starter box for Warhammer 40K is... Sorry, I'm getting distracted. This cat is sitting right in front of the camera in this.
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, okay. Wow, that's distracting. Okay.
That's great.
Okay, Indomitus, focus.
Indomitus.
What was I saying? Okay, so Indomitus sold out. You can't get it. Local game stores weren't able to get as many copies as they necessarily wanted. I think my local game store was able to get as many as they wanted, but a lot of local game stores were not.
Yeah.
And kind of to add to all of that, as soon as GW was finished selling out 2 weeks before the product went live, there were a ton of eBay scalpers, saying that they would sell you to the box in 2 weeks for, let's say, double the MSRP.
Yeah.
And so then, the memes and the Reddit posts and the Facebook posts just went into overdrive, super angry at at GW, super angry at the Scalpers. And then a few days after that, GW said, okay, we'll do, a second printing of that. You can pre-order for like the next batch now. They were calling it a made-to-order system. Yeah. And so, like you will be able to get the starter box for 9th edition if that is something you wanted, which is good. That's not the sort of product that you should do a limited run on.
No, it's not. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. And then the next wave of memes were like, take that, Scalpers, GW good guys, like crushing the Scalpers. And yeah, I think we can talk a lot about all kinds of aspects of this. Where do you want to start, Casey?
Let's start with the fact that Games Workshop kind of set themselves up for this situation. Like that, they kind of labeled it as a starter box. It essentially is. They didn't make enough of them for some reason, even though they are usually pretty good about making sure they have enough product. And if it's a starter box, people are gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty standard. The new edition's coming out. I play Warhammer. Like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that, right?
Right.
So, like, they set themselves up for this issue, and I think that, like, it kind of turned into a situation that didn't necessarily need to happen, or maybe like the people who are selling things on eBay ended up becoming the bad guys, when realistically, if Games Workshop had just said, oh, wow, okay, the demand for this is insane. This is the starter box. Let's just, no more of this pre-order, made to order. It's going to be on sale. We're going to print this. We're going to make this. Like, they could have just squashed the whole thing right there. Everybody would have been happy. But now it's created this situation that we all have to deal with. Now, as a person who goes on eBay quite often and sells things on eBay, it seems a little unfair. And I'm not saying that it's right to triple the price of something just because you know that people can't get it. But I think there's some stuff we can dive into in there. So, like, do you have anything along the same kind of lines as a starting point, and then where you want to go from there?
Sure. So this is not the only example of scalping or reselling rare minis in our hobby. I mean, so we can branch out away from GW pretty quick here. So
yeah,
I was giving this a lot of thought, and my overall takeaway is the Scalpers are just playing by the rules of the game. This is all a game. We're talking about buying toys here. So right. Every part of this is trivial, and you participate in this hobby however you want in order to get some fun. The worst case scenario is that a grown man is not going to get a box of toys. So this is like, I am a grown man who wants that box of toys, but I can still detach myself away and say, okay, the worst case is that, a child is not going to get a box of toys.
That would be a worse case.
That would be worse than the grown man situation. Yeah. And or grown woman. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just
grown peoples.
Grown peoples. Yeah, that's right. So from my point of view, the Scalpers are just playing a game the way the rest of us are playing a game. And they're not the bad guys. If the rules of the game allow them to buy however many copies of this box of toys and allow them to sell copies of that box of toys for a price that is way higher than the MSRP and that people are willing to pay, then they are playing that game well. And to a point, Congratulations. Do you know Martin Shkreli? Is that his name? The Pharma Bro?
It sounds so familiar,
Okay.
but I don't think so.
Just this really hateable guy who I think is currently in jail, but he's this like young investment banker kind of person who is most famous for buying up a couple of very small drug manufacturers who make a drug for a rare but very unfortunate disease. And he's the guy that, increased the price of some life-saving drug by like 2,000% or some ridiculous margin. But that's an example of essentially scalping. And I think that move was actually entirely legal by the rules at the time, the laws at the time.
Right.
It is still not cool. And, karma came back for old Skrelly and put him in jail for some other things. But
well, if you're the kind of person that would do that, then I have a feeling the barrier to entry as far as prison goes is a little bit lower for people who make specific kinds of decisions that are just not good for other people.
Right.
Like if you're out to get people, something will be out to get you.
Right. So in Skrelly's case, he was very clearly playing a game with it. Like he's also famous for streaming, I think on Twitch, himself playing League of Legends and just trolling people. So he's like a young investment banker who is causing real harm to real people by jacking up the price of their medication while also clearly having fun playing the game of commerce or what have you. And, clearly rubbing it in his face like, hey, you didn't think of buying this drug manufacturer and jacking up the price of something that people need to buy. And 9th edition 40K is not going to kill anybody, but nerds are going to buy it. Like there are people with a compulsion to acquire this box of toys. So
yeah, and if they can't get it for $200 and they can get it for $400, then that's the new price.
Yeah. So, there are some scalpers who are, trying to actually make a living and feed themselves and their family by, reselling things. There's people like you on eBay there, Casey, who are buying low, selling high, doing capitalism to, being a middleman to make a profit to keep a roof over their heads. And then there are also people who are just having fun with it, There's the old story of, a couple of brothers wait in line to get PlayStation 3, and each brother buys a PlayStation 3, and they have a great time playing one of them, and they sell the other one on eBay for 3 times the price, and they, two brothers, through their ingenuity and willing to wait in line for PS3, they got a free PS3, And and when you hear that story, I don't think anyone gets too upset by that story.
I think because a lot of the times we don't think of certain things in a bad light when obviously the story is pretty good. It's something that most people find fairly harmless, but you add corporation into it, even though that's probably not really what this is, but you look at eBay and you look at the scalped prices for these things. Now we're putting a label on it, scalping. It's not just reselling. All of a sudden these people become the bad guy. And again, I don't think $600 is a very fair price, but if people are willing to pay that, like that's what it is. The price goes up according to how fast these things are selling. If they say, oh, we want to make, X percentage, they sell out of however many boxes they had. And then they do it again. They jack up the price. It sells a little bit slower. They jack up the price a little bit slower, but they're still selling.
Right.
I mean, that's just how things work. So, whose fault is that, right? Like, if people weren't so... Well, I guess it just brings it back to, if Games Workshop had made more, this wouldn't have been an issue, but... if people are going to buy it, they're going to buy it.
Yeah, so Games Workshop has a couple of levers here. They control how many of a product they make. They control how much hype they give that product, and they have some controls about, well, of course they have the price control as well, but they also are able to say how many copies they will sell to each buyer. So if you're, part of the story was when these were first going up for sale, each person could buy 6 copies if they wanted to, but Games Workshop was like, oh wait, this is going to be a problem. So they knocked that down to 3, and they might have even knocked it down to 1 after that, in terms of copies that each person could buy. So Games Workshop has some levers there to control supply, demand. Yeah, I mean, they definitely control supply with their hype. They have some control over demand. Of course, they put a lot behind this. Yeah, they did put a lot of hype behind it. They were sending out a lot of test copies or review copies or promotional copies, which is not something that they do for all of their releases. But this was a release where they sent it out to a lot of YouTubers, not you or I, but they sent it out to a lot of folks, and they were definitely trying to drum up the hype for this. It's actually interesting in terms of like an economic supply and demand curve. Normally you think of wherever the supply curve meets the demand curve, that establishes where the price ends up. But in this case, Games Workshop entirely controls the supply. They also entirely control the price, and then the demand is they have some control over the demand too, with the amount of marketing they want to put in. But
I mean, there are people that work for them that can kind of give them an idea. It's like, well, we put X amount behind it, we see what's going on. If they limited it to 6 and it goes, well, maybe we should cut that back to limit that to 3. Well, you already have a problem, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, somehow you haven't given the supply that it's like it's not equal. Like, somebody didn't do their job.
Yeah. And I think they came up with the correct solution. Like, I am willing to entertain the possibility that they really just underestimated the real demand for this. Yeah. They shouldn't. I mean, they know what their previous box sets have been selling like, and they know what their 8th edition starter box sold like, and they know what their Primaris are selling like. And like they should have been able to predict demand, but give them the benefit of the doubt. They just made a mistake, underestimated demand. I think they came out to pretty much the correct solution of, well, we'll just print again. There's no reason it needs to be this limited of a thing. Like, just people want to buy it, print more. And I think that was a good solution. The kind of the interesting nugget here that I think is worth talking about is that Scalpers somehow became the scapegoat almost.
Right.
So
like it's their
fault. The reason you couldn't get a copy of Indomitus 20 minutes after the pre-sale began, that is the fault of Scalpers. And then when Games Workshop printed more, Games Workshop is the good guy for owning the Scalpers or whatever, rip Scalpers.
Well, they released it, and it's supposed to be that they're now controlling the market and pulling those prices down from Scalpers. And it's like, sure, yeah, there's more out there, so the price is going to go down.
Yeah.
But like, what was the purpose necessarily? I mean, it makes them look good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting more the way the community has reacted of the Scalpers are the bad guys, and then Games Workshop owned the Scalpers, pwned the Scalpers by doing the second run. And the interesting thing there is it kind of shows how this is just a game, and that if you are willing to make memes of the Scalpers getting, rip Scalpers, shut down Scalpers aren't making any money, like that's that's the rest of the community just having fun at the Scalpers' expense. Well, normally the Scalpers are having fun at our expense, but
well, and even then, I mean, generally so like I buy new product from eBay. Personally, I try and make sure that it's from a physical store, you know, so that I know that this is they're just shipping it from their store to me. And I feel pretty good about that, like supporting business still, even if I'm on eBay. Generally speaking, when these companies do this, nobody says a thing because they're selling it for either the same price or a little bit less. You know, I think we should look at other things besides Warhammer, do a little bit of a comparison, you know, with something else that shows exactly, I don't know, why we're not exactly siding with Games Workshop here.
So I have a good story on this one, actually.
Okay.
From Gen Con 2019. So the second time I've gone to Gen Con, I've kind of established my group of people that I wander around with there, my convention buddies. And anyway, last year, one of my convention buddies introduced me to kind of a friend of a friend. And so, you know, met a friend of a friend there at Gen Con, and like, oh, hey, what are you into? Like, oh, yeah, I paint minis and stuff. And it's like, oh, yeah. You heard about the Cool Mini or Not Song of Ice and Fire game, the Game of Thrones game? And did you hear about the drama with the Baratheons? And anyway, the story is that CMON was releasing an expansion to the Game of Thrones game. They were releasing the Baratheon faction, and the first place you could get that box set was at Gen Con. And so it was one of those, you know, an event special of getting all these new models for the first time at Gen Con. And I hadn't heard about it yet, but he's like, yeah, there was this big thing on Facebook about, you know, everybody being mad at Scalpers because people were coming and buying out all of these sets all at once, and no one else could get them. And yeah, the Gen Con event did sell out of all the Baratheon starter sets really fast that year. And anyway, this guy that I was just met is like, yeah, that was me. I was at the front of the line, and I said, okay, I'll take 10 sets, please. And the person at the cash register was like, well, we're actually like really limited here, and not everyone's going to be able to get one. It's like, do you have a rule that says I can't buy 10 sets? Well, no, we don't, but it's just not really cool. I'll have 10 sets, please. Here's my credit card. And
right.
Just I guess that's the amount of, like, he could carry back to his car or whatever. But
right,
yeah, you know, it's just people playing by the rules, and it's working the system.
Opportunity, right? Like, what's he gonna do after he sells those? He's gonna go buy more minis.
Right. like this person wasn't at Gen Con just to turn a profit. They're at Gen Con because they've gone every year for the last 20 years or whatever. They're big old nerd and they love this stuff. And then I saw the same guy a couple of days later, and he had his satchel on him, and I was kind of joking around like, oh, what's in the satchel? He's like, those are my Bilbos. What do you mean your Bilbos? It's like, oh yeah, we got like 20 limited edition Bilbos in here. Like, of course you do.
Right.
But
that's pretty good though.
Yeah. And so there's a couple of different game systems right there, but you know, it just makes me think of, I had a friend from college who he's a medical doctor now, and he's actually like a very I don't know if he's a good doctor or well-respected doctor, but like his resume looks very good. Like, you know, good schools, sure, and great internship and great residency and all that. Like, you know, went from good schools, then he went to Mass General Hospital, then he went to Johns Hopkins, and just like a very distinguished person. But his hobby is just hustling. It's buying stuff for cheap on Craigslist or on eBay, just every time I'd go and see him, there'd be like some leather backpack in the corner, like, oh yeah, that's Louis Vuitton, and I'm gonna sell it to this lady tomorrow for like $400 above what it's worth, and like just that's like his hobby is playing the game and doing mercantile, you know.
I mean, that's the thing. That's what a free market is, right?
Sure.
That's kind of the idea. If you can find someone who's willing to pay that, then you're doing what you need to do to survive or whatever. I mean, probably not in his case so much being a doctor, but it's a hobby. Mm-hmm. I've done that for years with things that I found at thrift stores, mm-hmm. you know, specifically Magic cards for years. Like, I've funded my Magic hobby by flipping cards, holding on to cards, waiting for times to sell them. Like, I like to do that. And sometimes I get screwed over. Sometimes I sell a $2 card for $65. Like, that piece of paper is not worth $65. But,
well,
today it is,
today
right?
It is, yeah.
Tomorrow might not be.
Yep. Do you watch Alpha Investments, that channel?
Yes, I do. I love that. I love that guy.
We'll talk about that then.
Okay. If you haven't seen it, Alpha Investments is a YouTube channel that specifically talks about investing, hence the name, into Magic the Gathering. Now, he runs a store, and he sells on eBay. But a lot of what he does is he buys old collections from people at whatever price they figure out, and then he flips a lot of the cards. He also kind of teaches you a little bit about investment into the world of Magic and flipping those cards. I do like to watch a lot of this stuff because like, I have found, you know, he'll say, hey, this card right here, like, totally spiked. It's way up right now, you know, and I've actually made money off of just watching a YouTube channel because it's like, holy crap, I've got 6 of those. Mm-hmm. You know, I bought them for $5 a piece and they're worth $50 now, you know. Like, I've been able to use that information to make a little bit of money and further my own hobby, or, you know, buy groceries. Like, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you watch that.
I've watched not maybe like 10 episodes or something like that, and actually, for me, some of the more interesting stuff is he has at least one, maybe like a couple different storage units where you just have stacks and pallets of sealed booster boxes from Magic sets from the last 25 years. Yeah. And so, you know, he'll have just a stack of like 100 of some box from 7 years ago, and then he'll move a few of those aside, and there'll be something from 18 years ago behind that, and just these plastic wrapped boxes of, you know, cards for nerds. And when I'm watching that guy, Rudy, I think his name is, but when I'm watching Rudy, he's treating it as an investment. And I don't think I've spent a lot of time on his comment section, but nobody is calling him a scalper. No, he is buying product that Wizards of the Coast is offering, and he is sitting on it for, I mean, he's willing to sit on it for clearly like 20 years if that's what he thinks will be profitable. But he's sitting on product, and, you know, sometimes he's buying, sometimes he's selling. But nobody's calling him a scalper. I mean, what he is doing is trying to buy low and sell high and turn a profit. But he's not, it's all a matter of framing. Like, it is someone playing a game. It is someone being smart. It is someone doing legal things that are generally celebrated by our society in terms of using capitalism to do what capitalism does. And the only victim here is a 40-year-old nerd who's spending $184 on a dual land magic card or whatever. Like
right.
And in terms of the people, quote unquote, scalping Indomitus boxes, or investors or resellers or whatever you want to call them, like, the only person being hurt here is someone who is willing to spend $400 on a box that, might have ordinarily cost $200.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like $400 to one person is not $400 to another person.
Sure.
Like that, I think that gets lost a little bit, to some people. Like that amount of money is just not a thing. They're like, oh, it's 400. Okay, cool. Like, I want those models, I don't think little Susie's spending her allowance and getting screwed over,
Right. Yeah. You do not need models in the same way that you need medication or food or, actually in the time we live in, toilet paper is an interesting one, right?
I got a little bit on that because there are some rules. There are actually rules about that in a national emergency situation.
Go for it.
Okay.
You know what? Fine.
I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
So, price gouging, which a lot of people relate to this situation, right? They're saying, oh, you're just gouging people, you're screwing people over. It should be illegal, right? Well, it's not. Technically, I could go down to the store on any normal day, non-corona day, buy a thing of toilet paper and freely try and sell that bag of toilet paper for however much money I felt like. And if someone was willing to pay that money, that's what they wanted, right? I'm not here to tell them how to spend their money. In a national emergency where we've declared that, like each state declared that kind of back to back, and then the United States declared that national state of emergency, you are not allowed to sell above, I think it's 10% of the price that's in whatever store it is, like whatever the general price is. And you can go to jail for that, because now you are trying to take advantage of an emergency situation and screw someone over.
Right.
So, like, a lot of people got mad because that dude that lived in like Sacramento or whatever had that kind of douchey picture of his garage filled with toilet paper. He didn't go to jail. And people were saying this price gouging. He's we need this toilet paper. We need all these things. National state of emergency hadn't been called yet, and he sold out of all that toilet paper. After the fact, it was, so he didn't do it anymore. People were scared, but it wasn't legally wrong for him to do that yet.
Right.
So it's a very interesting situation. And this Indomitus scalping, whatever you want to call it, isn't that situation. It is not an emergency.
It is not an emergency. And the other thing tied into that is it's, I'm thinking of it as a game, same way capitalism is a game, but there can be rules for this game. In the same way that, states or the country can put rules on what you can buy and sell or for what prices, GW can establish the rules of the game of how many boxes they ship to a single residential address, how many boxes they ship to a warehouse that is not connected to a physical store. GW has certainly blackballed companies before. GW certainly sets pricing restrictions on what people are allowed to sell their products for. The one we hear of a lot is that it's either 80 or 85% is the kind of the most discounted off of MSRP that a store is allowed to sell. So, there are, on Amazon or eBay, you can find people selling all kinds of different GW products for 15% off, and I think maybe even 20% off. But
yeah, it depends on where it is, but yeah, there's certain rules that they have to follow.
Right, but there is a definite basement there, or floor, of what they're allowed to sell for. And if GW, if they're selling to a legitimate business, they can say, okay, these, in order for us to keep supplying you with product, here is the price range that you're allowed to sell this for relative to the MSRP. And in terms of making sure that they're not selling to illegitimate businesses or whatever, they're not selling to somebody who is just a private citizen doing their eBay hustle.
Yeah.
Don't ship 5 pallets to one apartment building, or don't ship 5 pallets to a warehouse that is not connected to an actual game store. Like,
in most cases, they do a check.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Like they check online, or however they call the store. I don't know. But that's for like a lot of Kickstarters. I can get a huge discount and buy 5 versions of this game if I'm a certified store owner or whatever it is.
Right.
Retailer. They make sure that you actually are. So they are trying to prevent those kinds of things, because it kind of sucks when people are trying purposely to make more money on your product when you're just trying to get it out to as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah. Just in my view, capitalism is better with like a couple of rules in place, and in this case, GW is setting the rules for who can buy Indomitus and how many copies they can buy, and the little flare up of the interest in all of these scalpers is just a little reminder that they need to keep the eye on the ball there. And if they do have a limited release product, just try, for the sake of publicity and public opinion, to make sure that anyone who wants one is able to buy one, to make sure that maybe someone isn't able to buy 6 or 60. And I guess one last thing to touch on here. Have you seen the 2 special release Cadian models? There's a jacked man and jacked woman.
I've seen the obvious Carl Weathers Predator model.
Right.
I want to say I've seen the other one, but I'm not sure if I have.
Just a beefy lady in the Catachan outfit, and I think both of those were in the last year or so.
Seen that. Yeah, I have to have seen it.
Yeah, and okay, so there have been these 2 Catachan models, and I think one of them in particular was used to promote new store openings, like new Warhammer stores. And the idea is to drum up a little bit of hype for this character model that you can't get anywhere else, to get people to go see the new Warhammer store and meet the staff and give them a little business and hopefully come back again someday. And of course, one of the effects of having these special release characters is that, a couple of days later, anyone in the world can buy them, but for $100 or whatever the price happens to be. I know that
whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, I mean, that one Carl Weathers was, I think it might have stabilized at like $75, but for a while it was well over $100 to get that Carl Weathers figure.
Right, for a model that they would have probably sold for $25.
I mean, these days 35 and people would have bought it. But,
sure.
But yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still double, triple the price? How's that any different from Indomitus? Nobody's calling those people scalpers either. I don't think that... I mean, maybe they are.
Well, it's I don't know what label is being attached, but there is that same feels bad feeling of... Wow, they released their first Catachan models in 21 years or whatever. And
yes.
And so there's that bad feeling of like, wow, that is a really cool model. I would love to paint up Carl Weathers as Imperial Guardsman.
Yes, absolutely.
And like, okay, I don't live near this new store in Arkansas, and I don't live in the UK. and there was a new store in like Vancouver, Canada, and okay, but so I guess I'm not actually going to any of those stores, but I would still like to buy this figure and support the company that's putting out a cool figure like this, but then you can't get it, or rephrased, you can get it, but you are paying a lot of money for it.
Yeah. There are a lot of companies that do limited edition releases. A lot of the point of them, and I suspect that Games Workshop has the same goal in mind, is to create more demand and to make things more special than they technically are. Like the fact that they're even saying that anything that they make is limited edition means that they want to attach greater value to it down the road. Like they know that there are collectors. So that's just how limited edition things work. Like even for the alpha investments, right? Like there are limited edition Magic sets. They're special. They're worth more money. They put more value into that. And it's like the value that's being placed on some of these things is purely due to the secondary market of how much people think that these things are worth. Because at the end of the day, it's costing pennies to print one card, right? So it's like they're upping the price of those limited edition boxes because they know that they're going to be worth more. They're trying to turn a profit just like anyone else. Like Games Workshop isn't the exception,
Right. And yeah, I mean, limited releases are absolutely a thing in every game, and it does add a fun aspect for collectors. And I think I've mentioned this before, but a podcast I like listening to is Drive to Walk with Mark Rosewater Morrow for Magic the Gathering. And he talks sometimes about like, okay, if you're making a rare foil card or something, how rare should you make it? Because you want there to be the thrill of the hunt in looking for a rare item. You want it to be satisfying when you do get a card, in this case, that not everybody can get. But you don't want to make it so hard that it becomes almost impossible to make something. If you do such a limited release that it just, there's this feels bad of, okay, nobody has this, it's just not even on the market, like that's bad. So there's a really interesting discussion to be had there of, for making these fun things for collectors to hunt down, how rare should you make them? And I don't know, part of the thing I'm lamenting here is just with the advent of eBay and internet sellers, there's no hunt anymore. It's just, are you willing to pay 4 times the MSRP to acquire this figure? And with Magic cards or something, it used to be that you'd have your cards that you like, and then you'd have your trade pile of like, okay, these cards might be worth something to somebody. They're not really worth anything to me, but I've got my binder of, I'd be willing to trade these cards. And, I meet somebody at a shop, we'll see what they have. And then there's that thrill of the hunt of like, whoa, this person has whatever, and I'd be willing to trade, these 3 cards for it. And you get that negotiation, and you get that satisfaction of finding that rare item. Yeah. But here it's, here it's GW creates this rarity. They are going to sell out of every Carl Weathers that they print, and they are going to, they're making a set value from there. And then the residual of that is, after they sell all their copies, the secondhand copies are going for 3 times the MSRP. And so the net effect is, like, the legacy of that print run is the bad feelings that come along with seeing those posts on eBay.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I think that bothers me the most is, like, it's purely preventable. none of this situation needs to have happened. You know, there's no real reason for them to actually make limited edition anything. Like, what do they just not want to make money? Like, no, they want to create value around something. They want to create the thrill of the hunt. Or probably more so, if you go into a store and you see someone playing that model, you're going to be like, that is awesome. How do I get one of those?
Yep.
Like, it creates a feeling inside of you, right? Like, it's totally different than, oh yeah, like, we've got 50 Indomitus boxes. Yeah, you can have one, sure. It's no big deal.
Yeah, the fear of missing out and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's marketing, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a good job. Like, here we are sitting here talking about how hard it is to get an Indomitus box, and if you want one, you better buy one. And I'll actually tell you, Casey, that literally yesterday I went to the store, my local store, and they actually had a few extra, and I bought one. So I bought an Indomitus yesterday. Is the rest of this whole conversation because in my mind for the past 2 weeks is how rare this is. It's a limited edition. They're doing this second run, but after that second run, there's not going to be any more. And so they're doing their job right.
My local store still has a copy of the Sisters of Battle limited edition box.
Do they? Well, I might have to come visit you someday, Casey.
I know. I keep staring at it like, yeah, that's right. It's still limited edition, right? Like, no, it's literally here. It's not, it's not that big of a deal. And I know for a fact that they're getting, or they have a ton of Indomitus boxes. Like, I have a GW store here, and I know they had some. And we have like 2 other pretty large hobby shops that have piles of Indomitus.
Cool.
Yeah.
By the pricing structure that GW is set up for the rest of their products, like, it is a pretty good deal if you're willing to use the rest of their catalog to calibrate yourself. Like it. Yeah.
I don't know how many points are in each army.
Yeah, I mean, just dividing all of those figures into whatever they're actually going to be packaged as, and estimating what those packages are going to sell for. Like, it's a good deal. Yeah.
Yeah, generally. I do trust that they try and push for that. They want you to pick up these boxes, probably because it's less expensive for them to manufacture like that, and eventually they're going to recoup whatever money. Yeah.
Well, I know you're an eBay shopper. Like, if you're trying to put together an army, you're thinking in terms of your daily hunt on eBay, and that's where you get your fun and your enjoyment and your models from. Me, I'm more of a start collecting box sum person. Of if I'm thinking of starting an army, which I may or may not ever actually do, I'm thinking of in terms of like, all right, what has the best start collecting box? Because which start collecting box is a good deal, and normally the actual start playing the edition of the game is a good deal as well, But right. Anything else to say about scalping? I mean, I think the Rudy example there is perfect. The Alpha Investments channel, like a whole YouTube channel about buying and holding stock and reselling nerd products for the purpose of investing and turning a profit. And
and we're talking about games, right? We're talking about non-life altering things. I mean, like Rudy equates what he's doing to like corn.
Sure.
I buy and sell corn, or orange juice, or pork belly. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever it is, that's what he's equating this to, because he's trying to make a living from actually doing a hobby that he likes to do, right? He's doing it very well, or it seems to be, anyways, from what he does on YouTube. I think the only thing I want to make sure that we're getting across is that we don't believe, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me with this on, you know what I'm saying, that buying and upping the price of like prescription medication that's life-saving, that people absolutely need to live, is terrible
Right. That is bad. Yeah.
That
I don't know if
bad.
I completely made that point. I don't like Martin Shkreli. I think he's a bad man.
We're not trying to say that this thing is it's legal, so it's fine. No, like that sucks.
Yeah.
But when it comes to toys,
yeah. I think he's an interesting point, because if you see a picture of his face, you can see that he's not even doing it just because he's a greedy man. He's doing it because he loves playing the game and getting something over on somebody.
Yeah.
And in his case, he's doing it with medication that people need. So playing games with that and price gouging people on that is a very bad thing. And we should probably take another look at the laws regarding all that situation. But
like in certain situations, yes, there should be limitations and whatever it is. And I mean, the prescription drug company is a huge example for that.
Yeah.
But we don't need to go into that. This is
the
podcast
not
about
today,
prescription companies.
Yeah,
we're talking about plastic toys.
Yeah, for plastic toys, I mean, it's really a question of, like you said, the limited edition. That is good marketing. It gets people talking about it. It gets people in the mindset, if I see this, I better buy it when I see it. And that is nothing new. And the only thing they have to weigh that against is, are they going to get the fans to turn on a little bit if they do that too much, if there's too much of that bad feeling of things selling out, like the starter set selling out in the first 10 minutes of pre-order. And so it's just managing people's emotions, playing with their customers' emotions in the right way to enhance sales. That's all it is. Of course, we would like the products to be readily available, but we understand what's going on. So
I mean, at the end of the day, it is a game. It's marketing. It's sales. Like, they're just trying to do what they can. They've also ended up turning this situation into, like, GW is still the good guy, even though they didn't print enough.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
so, like, good for them, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't even know how they did it, but the community decided that the quote scalpers were the bad guys here, and then that GW stuck it to the scalpers by printing the correct amount of the product they were selling. And I don't know, but we can move past this. In a few weeks from now, nobody's going to care about Indomitus anyway, so we're late to this game anyway. But I'm waiting for the day one of us really gets into Kingdom Death Models, or one of those companies that really enjoys the limited releases and the I don't think either of us are there on that one. I'm trying to think of what other games have like badly limited releases.
I mean, the only thing I can really think of would be like Magic.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I don't particularly care for the limited release thing. Like, it's the fear of missing out. Like, I feel like I'm being manipulated on purpose, so I don't tend to buy into that. Because I don't want to have that feeling every single time I see a model. Like, oh, I can't afford it right now. Like, sucks to be me, I guess.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Kind of tied up in all of this is if the community does get angry enough about something, they'll threaten to boycott or whatever. Like, GW playing these games, vote with your wallet. Like, don't support them doing this. And the thing is, nerd boycotts never work. Like, people are buying those Space Marines. You can't.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, if you want to make a difference, don't buy from resellers who aren't actually physical stores.
There you go. That's a good point.
Yeah, like, do the test, check to make sure that they are, because Games Workshop maybe did or did not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Cool. All right, moving on here. We talked about that for a while, huh? Sorry.
For a good long while.
So it's a little late now, guys, but we've mentioned this before, that this podcast is pretty good at 1.25 times speed, or 1.5 even.
Maybe we should open with that next time.
I know one guy who swears by 2x speed on just everything, and yeah, we should open with that next time. But look, we want to get to a few viewer questions here, Casey?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can do a couple and then wrap it up. I think that sounds pretty great. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll read you one to get you started off.
Yeah, so that you can think about your answer. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Okay. So this first one comes from RK. Okay, not immediately thinking of any bad connotations of those initials, so good job, R. The question is, how do you guys get better at painting quicker and keeping quality? It takes me hours to paint a single standard Space Marine at a mediocre standard. Is it a case of making time to practice more?
I think that really is what it comes down to. Like continuing to paint and practicing, but being focused and trying to improve while you're painting every single time. That's gonna make it easier and quicker. You're just gonna know when things are right, when the paint is mixed properly on your palette. You know how to apply that and not go, I overspilled on something else and have to go back. And those are the kinds of things that slow you down. So it is a lot of practice. You just get better at the whole repetition because it's kind of just doing the same thing over and over again a lot of the times. The other thing is, if you really want to get better at painting quicker, just start a YouTube channel. Like, you will get so much better at painting quicker a lot faster.
Yeah. So on this, there's a lot of things that you can pick up through repetition, and if you're somebody who's painting a lot of Space Marines, just because that was the example there, the people who really paint a lot of Space Marines, they have the practice of knowing exactly where the highlights go. Like a lot of Space Marine helmets and shoulder pads all look pretty much the same. And if you have painted many Space Marines specifically before, you know where the highlights go. On the shoulder pads, like the trim, there is absolutely a technique to paint the trim without accidentally getting the paint to run into that 90-degree angle and getting the curve of the shoulder plate there. And there is absolutely a technique to black lining that shoulder pad trim and all the other stuff. So there is some muscle memory just in general painting. There is some model specific muscle memory and strategy. And of course, like if you want to try to crank out 10 Space Marines fast, you can try just to make your plan and stick to your plan and do like a batch painting thing. If your goal is to get those 10 Space Marines done in a shorter time than 20 hours, that's probably reasonable. You can probably do that. But I think the point you brought up, Casey, of recognizing when the fundamentals are right, like just getting the proper amount of paint into water or water into paint, like recognizing when you have the right amount of paint on your brush, recognizing when your brush is garbage and you need to like throw it out and pick up a different one.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of those little lessons of just knowing when what I'm about to do is not going to work and I shouldn't even try it. Like there's a lot of things that you pick up, just, experience and practice that way. But, and then a final comment on this. I don't think I've actually sped up that much. I mean, I do avoid wasting time on a lot of little things. Like I am able to say, okay, my brush has too much water or not enough water, or, whatever. Like there are things that I've picked up over time, but when I sit down to paint a model, I don't think I've actually gotten that much faster. Like I always just get into my Zen-like state of just sitting there and watching TV and painting and Yeah, I don't think like in terms of managing expectations, I don't think I've sped up that much. I mean, I know some people do speed up, but I don't think I have.
Well, it's an interesting, actually, an interesting concept to think about. Is it that you've gotten faster at painting, or do you just make less mistakes so you're painting more efficiently in the same amount of time?
I think more of that one. Like, I like to think that I have gotten better over time.
Right.
But I don't think that I crank through a model that much faster. I just think, my models always tend to take like 3 or 4 hours. Seems to be where I'm at. But
well, and I should probably just mention that everybody's different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
There's no metric for like good and fast
or done.
Like some people are really good at throwing colors together quickly and coming up with something really cool. Right? But that doesn't make you a better painter just because you're quicker at something. Like the best paint jobs in the world didn't take 5 minutes.
Yeah. So RK, learn to love it because you're going to be spending a lot of time painting Space Marines, but you'll get more efficient. I think that's fair to say. I think it's fair to say, experience is going to make you more efficient.
Yeah. Like you'll get quicker at knowing when your brush is perfect for that edge highlight and when it's going to be just a disgusting blob right on the corner. You'll probably throw down 1,000 blobs before you get there, but that's fine.
That's fine.
That's how it goes.
All right. This one definitely goes to you. This is from KJ. Thinking. Okay, no bad connotations coming to mind. KJ says, in a future episode, here we are, would y'all mind discussing about fair commission job values for painting and building minis? So, Casey, you have priced commission jobs before. Give us some baselines here.
So, pricing commission jobs, like a lot of the times you go to a website, your Frontline Gamings and whatever, and they have their commission service and they kind of have a set standard and that determines their pricing. You got your tabletop and above and then, studio quality or whatever they call it. They have been doing that for a long time, so they kind of have an idea, and they're also paying third-party people to paint those things for a flat rate. So like they know what they want to make on a certain kind of model. As a single person doing commissions, it kind of varies because there are a lot of factors. For a long time, I was just throwing down $15 an hour, which isn't a ton of money. And that seems to be around where like a lot of people are, although I've been told that like I'm way more inexpensive than most people. So I guess it just depends. Like you need to charge what you feel your paint jobs are worth. And that varies so much from person to person. So it's kind of hard to just put a number on something. What's your time worth?
Yeah.
What's an hour of your time
Figure
worth?
out what your minimum wage is there.
Right.
Yeah. And keep in mind that you are not charging for giving estimates and giving updates and the time you spend to drive to the post office or whatever. Keep in mind that there are a lot of tasks you have to do that are not strictly in your pricing and kind of build those in.
I will say this though, for building the minis, most like studio places that do it, they charge 50% of the total of the painting commission if they have to build it. Extra is what I'm saying. So like say your model's $100, well I'm going to charge an extra 50 if you want me to build that model. Now it seems fine because like whatever, I don't know, because there's a lot of stuff on your shoulder at that point, like mold lines and gaps and all these things that take time. And so, yeah, charging a premium on actually building them makes sense.
It takes a while to build a Mini, for real.
To do it properly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually ask people to build them beforehand, because it's a lot easier to just get the job done. I don't always do that, but I try to as often as possible. Yeah. That being said, too, I really stopped doing commissions, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do commissions, but just don't undervalue yourself.
Yeah.
Art, creative pursuits in general in our culture are constantly undervalued, and I imagine, Casey, that a lot of people reaching out to you, you send them a number and you just don't hear back. Is that
probably 80-90%? Yeah.
Okay. So if you're somebody who's looking to get commission work done, I mean, the paint job for your models is going to cost a lot more than the models themselves. Or
yes.
Yeah. And for somebody who just wants to play a game of Warhammer, or who hasn't really thought this through about how long it takes to do a paint job, about the fact that this is somebody that you are now employing, and that, people who are employed get paid, and especially if you are skilled labor, you might get paid reasonably well. And so for a lot of people, I don't think that jives with, this is a fun Space Marine that I want to like play some games with. Okay, that's going to be whatever, $30 to, there's a range of how much it costs to paint a Space Marine, but it takes me a couple hours to paint a Mini, and $15 an hour is in the realm of possibility, depending on how much you want to value your time, I guess. But
yeah,
for skilled labor, that's pretty cheap, $15 an hour.
Right, and that's what I set it to when I started.
Yeah.
And then I haven't raised it ever because I really just stopped doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But even looking back at some of the stuff I've done, it's like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Sure.
Because sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, that took me 3.5 hours. It's like, well, it's not much money for a single model, and I also made a video. Yeah, like that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time with commissions, people are like, oh, are you going to make a video out of this commission? It's like, well, I don't know. Generally I did, but still, that's a lot of work for $15 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get your army painted and then you ask for a quote and it comes back, $3,000 to paint that army, so if you are the client, that sounds, and you haven't done, paid for a commission artist before, that sounds like a lot of money. But if you're the, artist doing out the multiplication there, that's not a very big hourly rate. So just don't undersell yourself. Don't say $500 to paint an army, because if you do the math on that, that's going to be really depressing. And
right. Yeah, I mean, it just has to be worth your time, or else there's no reason to do commissions.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, why are you even doing it to begin with? Am I doing this to make money, or is it just kind of a fun thing to do on the side to make a few extra bucks? Who are you doing these commissions for? You also need to take a good look at your own skills and ask yourself if you are good enough to actually get paid to paint. You need to be serious about that.
Well, go into that more, Casey. Do this tough love here. Are you saying that there are some people who should not be commissioned painters, or not yet? Maybe give it a year and.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the kind of person you are, there are people who want to do commissions, and it's like, yeah, you spent 8 hours on this model, and it just doesn't look like. It doesn't look good. This is your third model. That's probably not worth much money, right? And I don't want to pay even if it is $15 an hour for 8 hours for a model that just, it's like you're missing the basics, right? Like you're not getting the paint down properly, things are broken, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Like if you don't actually know how to paint a model, right? Like that's probably not something you should pursue.
Right. It sounded like, negotiating with clients is one of the important aspects of being a commission painter, coming up with the quotes and then shipping it off and making sure they're happy, or giving update photos and making sure they're happy. But I can imagine that being a very unhappy and awkward situation if they pay you a couple $1,000s for an army and they hate the army that you painted for them.
Yeah. I mean, that's always kind of like the danger, right?
Yeah.
But
nightmare,
if you have open communication, you're sending pictures, you're doing your due diligence to make sure that they're getting what they want, then, like, generally speaking, it's not going to come down to a 2,000 point army they hate, right? At least you hope not. I think the worst thing that ever happened, which is not even a bad thing, is one of the models that I painted was a Space Marine Sergeant, and it was painted with a white stripe down the top of the helmet. And the dude was like, hey, could you just like strip this down and paint it like pretty nice, right? So I painted it exactly the same, but like used an airbrush and did all this stuff, made it look pretty cool. And then he comes back, he's like, well, yeah, so the helmet's supposed to be red. And it's like, well, I don't know, you said this is what it was. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I had to go back on my own time and paint that helmet red.
You didn't know the rank markings for that chapter of Space Marines,
right.
Did you? Yeah.
But I also didn't clarify either.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, communication is a two-way street for sure.
Yeah. Like I assumed that what he gave me was what that was, and I was incorrect. So I said, okay, yeah, like I should have realized, I actually own the model with a red helmet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of stupid, right? But that'll happen. So you just need to make sure that you are communicating properly and valuing your time, and make sure that your skills are up to it. Like you are up to painting a bunch of stuff however somebody else asks you to.
Yeah. Yeah, I love listening to Luke from Luke's APS Geek Gaming talk about this stuff. And, he used to be a musician, and he's talking about, if someone wanted him to come down to be the bassist for some event or something, and they'll be like, okay, come down for the day. We'll do like a trial run or whatever. And he's like, okay, what are you going to pay me? Like, oh, for the day? Oh, it's just a trial run. It's like, no, you're hiring me. I'm labor, like even though this is an artistic pursuit, like my time is absolutely worth something. You are hiring somebody to do something for you, and they have skills that you need, and don't undervalue that. Don't let yourself be undervalued. And if it is not worth the potential client's money to pay you, then it's okay just not to do a commission. Don't sell yourself out cheap to the point where they're happy. Like just
right.
Yeah, do it.
Just because you get the job, or somebody says, "Hey, I'll give you $50 to do this thing." Like that doesn't mean you have to take it. I've not taken way more jobs than I've been offered. Good. And I still am quitting.
Wonderful. All right, let's crank out another one here, Casey. This comes from SW. Okay, SW is safe, all right? Yeah. Okay. My question to you both is, what is your favorite fictional universe that you'd love to be real? And does that influence your painting, such as choice of palette color and what minis you paint?
I was thinking about this question a little bit, and I really couldn't pinpoint any kind of fictional universe that I would love to be real. You know, you got your Star Warses, your Star Treks. Like, they sound cool, but like realistically, living in either one of those, like, who knows? I don't know. I can't decide. But does that influence your painting, like a universe, a fictional universe? I like that a lot better. And I think it absolutely can. Mm-hmm. You know, like you were talking about Star Wars Rebels, right?
Yeah.
You know, looking at different colors and how they're playing on that, and the chick's got an airbrush, and like, how could that play into something that you actually want to paint? Like, that's a very real thing. It's going to give you ideas while you're watching that show, a little bit of inspiration. You know, you watch movies with like very striking color, you know, that new Blade Runner or Mad Max, Fury Road, right? Like, it has an aesthetic to it that is inspirational. It's very cool. So like, I definitely think that like your favorite fictional universes, whatever that is, you can pull things out of that do influence your painting. You know, like you play Gaslands. Like, you're going to go to Mad Max for inspiration, right? You want your cars to be rusty and beaten up and like all that stuff. It's all there. So I think that while I can't personally pick a favorite, I think that there are a lot of places to pull from, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I'd be fine living in the Federation. I think that's actually a pretty good place to live as far as these things go. The Federation and the Star Trek, not bad at all.
Yeah, world peace, aliens.
Yeah, no
nice.
Hunger, war. They don't even have currency until they meet the Ferengi, and then they get the gold-pressed platinum. But
gold-pressed platinum.
Yeah, the rules of acquisition. Oh, we should have done the whole talk about scalping in terms of rules of acquisition. We missed an opportunity. Next time.
Oh, you are so right.
Whoops.
I'm sure I could have just pulled them up. We would have gone through the. We screwed up.
That was actually. I think they sold that as a book at one point, or somebody did.
I'm sure they did.
Amazing.
That's genius.
Okay.
We're stupid. That's fine.
But yeah, so I think it is interesting that I do watch TV shows and movies now and look for inspiration. And I'd say that my hobby has changed the way that I watch movies. And, you know, just this episode, we were talking about Sabine Wren doing airbrushing on TIE fighters, and just the look of the show gets a lot of new colors into it because of that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just whenever you're watching a show that just sometimes just color combinations leap out at you. Like, yeah. I can't remember what it was, but I was watching something that had like tropical islands in it, and just the combination of that teal of the water with maybe the green from palm trees, and then maybe like the reddish sand or something like that, and just those colors together just look so good, and it's just like, wow. I need to do something with that color palette of teal and that green and that red sand color. I needed to find an excuse to do that. And I can't even remember what that movie was, but that was a case of, it was just like the palette. Or another situation, we were talking about the Avengers Endgame, and I can't remember whatever the second to last Avengers movie was. One of the bad guy characters was essentially a witch elf, and she
with the stripe.
Yeah, with the stripe. And it was essentially a witch elf was one of Thanos's lieutenants or whatever, and she had this it was just the makeup that she had on her face, but she had like a stripe across both of her eyes, and just it was like, wow, that's such a cool little bit of makeup. That's some makeup that I could actually draw on my minis. Just whether that's makeup or a tattoo, stroke. I don't know, but that would look awesome on a witch elf. And that's just one of those things stolen from some other artist, and that's in my idea box. I haven't used it yet, but someday I will. And Star Trek ships look cool, and I have some toys around here that I'll paint one of these days.
Yeah. I've never gotten a model, but I think it was Matchbox was selling like die cast scale ones for like $1 or whatever. It was just like mixed in with the cars, and I found a couple of those like over the years. So I picked up a couple of those, but nothing scale model like plastic kits or anything.
Nice. I actually have a few pretty large ones. Playmates, or I can't even remember the company, but they're like foot long Star Trek ships.
All right, yeah.
And they're toys, but I think they'll paint up pretty nice. And I'm thinking about doing like not the standard film version, but just doing
Not
something
the
crazy
gray.
on them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you should go nuts. Use your airbrush.
Yeah. No, I'd say absolutely. Whenever I'm watching something now, I'm looking for inspiration, and I watched Guns Akimbo last night, which is,
I still haven't seen that.
yeah, it's got some moments. It's kind of like a little bit of crank in there, but this is the movie where Radcliffe, whatever, Harry Potter as a grown man, wakes up one morning and has guns bolted to his hands. And then he has to like participate in some underground fight club that's televised on the internet. And it led to a lot of great memes of the first D&D character you ever have is, and then there's this picture of Daniel Radcliffe as in his second year at Hogwarts or something, just a nice, neat little wizard. And then everybody's 10th D&D character that is just grown man Daniel Radcliffe with guns bolted to his hands running around the middle of the street in a bathrobe. And
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, so it's just got a bunch of like fun, crazy stuff in there, and it is this underground fight club kind of thing. And so a lot of the characters have that really punk vibe to them, and the almost like gangers from Necromunda or something like that.
Yeah. Well, even just the guns bolted to your hands, like you could make some kind of little thing, like literally push a pin through like an arm and there's like a gun on there or whatever. Like, it's a sweet idea already.
Yeah, just that.
Yeah.
But and there's so many little details like that on the various characters, like kind of the lead female ganger just has like silver canine teeth. I mean, she's got a bunch of crazy tattoos and everything too, but then you've known the character for a couple of minutes and then she smiles and then there's just these crazy silver like canine teeth. It's just perfect stuff like that. Most models don't even have the canine teeth sculpted, but
right.
Just put that in your back pocket for the next time you need inspiration. Yeah, watch videos with an open mind and thinking about this stuff, and absolutely a wonderful place for inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we hit that one pretty good.
Nailed it.
And on that note, thank you for joining us on another episode of Paint Bravely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with your hobby friends. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
That's right. Talk to you next time.